And I'm just like, girl, we get it. You like tall guys, but we really need you to dig deeper than this. Hi everyone, my name is Demetri and welcome back to DemetriTube, The Bachelorette, Golden Edition, Night 5. Let's talk about it. As always, if you're enjoying my videos, please go ahead and pound that like button, pound that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell. I'm a growing YouTuber and the like subscribes really help me out. Just one quick thing before we get started. I'm sorry about the delay of my last video. I was just having like an off week. Like it wasn't anything specifically, but I was just having an off week, but we are back on it. Let's dive into this episode. The episode starts and we get a one-on-one with Joan and Trista. I believe Trista is the first Bachelorette ever. If that's not correct, somebody like clock me in the comments. I'm pretty sure she's the first one though. And during this one-on-one, nothing really happens except Joan tells Trista, I need to open up more because I'm falling for more than one of these guys. And I was just like, no, you're not. After that, we have a one-on-one with Keith, and sidebar, Keith has really pretty brown eyes. And for the date, Joan and Keith take a helicopter over SoCal. And then after that, they go to a vineyard. I'm pretty sure it's a vineyard, but I don't remember them drinking wine, but I'm pretty sure it was a vineyard. So taking a helicopter is always cool, but going to a vineyard, I guess that's a cool date. I feel like I would rather do that with a group of friends than as a one-on-one date though. Also, I don't really drink much, especially wine. This is a date I would do, but I don't know if it'd really be my cup of tea. And also right now, there are some really cool vineyards in Northern Virginia, and I think there's some in Maryland, and right now is like one of the best times to go with your friends and go wine tasting. I just personally haven't gone, but maybe one day. And everyone who goes loves it, so maybe I should go. And don't call me a liar about the drinking thing. Y'all watch my videos every week, so if you see up here, I do have liquor here, but the reason I have liquor is because like, so if I have friends over for like a pregame and then we go out, I like to make sure like people enjoy themselves and I have enough liquor for everyone, and it's cheaper to get it in a big bottle than it is to like buy smaller bottles. It's not because I'm sitting here chugging bottles of liquor all the time. And if you have not been in the streets in a while, just know one beer after tip is probably like $10 a beer, and then like a liquor drink is probably after tip, it's probably like $15 or $16. And like, y'all, you can go to Target and get a case of beer for like $20, and a handle of liquor is probably between 40 and 60 depending on like what kind of bottle you get. So I very much encourage people to drink at home and pregame hard at home. And just a heads up, I live in a major city. For those of you who live further out, I'm sure it's cheaper. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. So there's just a few things I want to mention about this date. First, Keith feels a lot of pressure because his last one-on-one with Joan didn't go well, and it was just interesting because I'm like, Keith, just be yourself. Like, you're a goofy fun guy, just be yourself. Like, you don't have to do that much. And then at one point Joan says that Keith reminds her of a big teddy bear. She feels safe and comfortable around him, and I'm just like, girl, we get it. You like tall guys, but we really need you to dig deeper than this. And the only reason this bugs me is just because I feel like every girl says that. Every girl says they want like a taller guy because they feel safer and more comfortable around him. Like, Joan, we need more. We need you to dig a little deeper. I know you were shallow back in the day and you still are, but we need to get past that. Next, while at the vineyard, Joan and Keith meet a couple and they reach their like 32nd or 33rd year of marriage or something. And this really triggers Joan because she was about to reach the same milestone with her husband before he died. And she says that hearing about that, like, she gets emotional, she cries a little bit, and she apologizes to Keith, saying that like really triggered her. Y'all, so this is a pet peeve for me, and I may sound a little douchebaggy saying this, but I don't care. I do not like when people are constantly triggered by things. Oh my God, this is triggering. Oh my God, this is triggering. And just a heads up, I live in a very liberal city and people are constantly triggered here by the most random things. And why I get so annoyed about these triggers is like, more than likely you cannot change these triggers, but you can change how you react to these triggers. For example, this married couple has been married for 33, 32 years. You can't change that. And they are literally just having a normal conversation and explaining that, but Joan is triggered by this. It just shows like, Joan, you're either too sensitive or you need therapy. And also, y'all, it's getting to be too much. So one difference between regular Bachelor and Golden is they're really plucking your heartstrings. But for this, Joan, hearing someone reached a marriage milestone was triggering for Joan. On the last episode or the episode before last, she saw a hawk in the sky, and that reminded her of her husband too. And it's like, I hate to say this, it's like becoming overdone for me. And don't get me wrong, I understand what ABC is trying to do here, but it's starting to become overkill because later in the episode, Mark talks about like that hummingbird thing with his wife, and then he mentions the butterfly thing for Kelsey and her mom and his too. And it's like, y'all, so if y'all don't know, I'm a Taurus, and overall I'm just very practical. So constantly finding meaning in these little things is like pretty wild to me. And again, if we're reading a novel and you're trying to be literary, I get it. And again, this is a show. We're trying to pluck those heartstrings, but y'all, at some point it becomes overkill, and it's starting to become overkill for me. Next, Joan being triggered by them saying that, again, is another possible example. She's not ready to move on. And I'm going to touch on this more later in the video. So remember this moment. I'm going to touch on it more later in this review. And the last thing I want to say about this, people clearly forget about this, and watching this show, it's The Bachelor, it's about finding love, yada yada yada, but like, you don't have to get remarried. Like, that is very much an option. My grandmother, after my grandfather passed, she put her time on herself, her grandkids, her kids, and she just continued to live life. At no point was she like, oh, I need to find a new man and I need to get remarried. And it's okay to do that. And don't get me wrong, that is very old school, but also it is also a very viable option. And a lot of these contestants, I'm starting to feel like maybe y'all shouldn't get remarried. I'm feeling like that about Joan. I definitely feel that way about Charles L. And there's some more contestants where I'm just like, you can stay single. Like, you don't have to get remarried. And don't get me wrong, I totally get it. A lot of these people don't want to be lonely. They don't want to die alone. They're likely going to live a long life, and they may not have someone with them. I totally get that, but I don't think you should get married because you're lonely. And maybe I'm just a millennial and thinking that way. Maybe I'm just too chronically online that I don't think you should find someone just because you're lonely. I understand that's a very millennial Gen Z thought, but I do agree with that. And Charles L. is the perfect example, because one of his reasons for dating again was because he didn't want to be lonely. And in my head, I'm like, most of y'all are not lonely. Most of y'all have kids. You have grandkids. Like, go move and be near them or something. Or yeah, I know people say this all the time, like join a group, join a club, join a church group. Easier said than done. But also that's an option as well. Like, yes, you have to put yourself out there. There's more options than getting remarried. That's all I want to say. There's more options than getting remarried. And don't get me wrong, I understand when you're at a much older age, like these contestants, it's so much harder to make friends. I understand that, but getting remarried, I don't think is always the answer either. And I swear, last thing I'm gonna say about this is more of a societal problem. So I think it was the last episode. At the end of the episode, Dan got eliminated, and during his elimination, he said he was so sad to leave because he lives by himself, and this was the first time he had hung out with a group of people for a long period of time in a while. And I thought that was like so sad, but also so real. So this is just an American problem. So the US, the way it's set up, it's just very isolating. Like, we have car culture, and the way it is just very isolating. And I noticed this in Europe. When I was in Europe, there's like a bunch of older people, and they're like walking around and hanging with other older people. And that's just one of the problems with the US, is that because the way most of it is set up, it's pretty isolating. So it's tougher for like older people to make friends and meet people. It's just the way it's just because of the way it's set up. And again, that's more of like a societal issue. And I hate, and it sucks that that's like a problem you're seeing on this show, but like, how else can you explain it? Anyways, going back to the date with Keith and Joan. So Keith opens up to Joan and talks about losing his wife to addiction and having to raise 3 daughters by himself, and then kind of not allowing his wife back into his life, which I totally understand. That was probably one of the hardest things he ever had to do. And I'm sorry, y'all, I keep making this like borderline political. I don't mean to, but at one point, Keith does say that when it comes to addiction, it's something you have to fight within yourself. Like, I think he does say a disease, but it's also something you have to want to change within yourself, and his wife lost that battle or something like that. And y'all, I live in the city. You see drug addicts here all the time, and there are so many services out here to help them. And I kind of think of all like the tax money that's put towards like the services and mental health, yada, 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 put towards helping them. But at the end of the day, they have to want to help themselves. And y'all, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, yada, yada, yada. But when people say it's a disease, I don't necessarily agree with that. But keep in mind, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I am just some random guy on YouTube expressing my thoughts. And the last thing I want to say about this date, I absolutely love Keith. And I think Keith, at this point, is her best choice. It's between Keith and Guy. Keith is a little goofy and he's not the best looking guy, but both Keith and Guy, I see Joan building a life with them and actually dating them for a long period of time. The only issue that I do have with Keith, if Joan wants to become Hollywood and live the Bachelor Nation lifestyle after this, I don't think Keith is the best choice. I feel like Guy would be a better choice for that. But if Joan is truly looking for a new spouse, I do think at this point, Keith or guy would be the best choice. After that, we move on to the group date, and this was such a fun group date. For the group date, they go bowling, and a lot of the guys got pretty competitive about it. And this was a cool date, but the only read that I do have is, so ABC rented out the whole bowling alley, or I guess they got a time slot where nobody else would be there. I kind of wish it was just like a normal night at the bowling alley and there was like other people around and more just going on. So bowling alleys can be kind of loud, so maybe they just had to rent out the whole thing because of audio, but I think it would have been better if there was more going on than just them. And honestly, this was just a great choice. Like bowling, it's not too wild of an activity and there's plenty of opportunity to talk to Joan. Honestly, I think they should do this with like the regular seasons of Bachelor, but the only reason they don't is because it may just not be glamorous enough, but whatever. So during the group date, Chalk pretty much turns this into a one-on-one and hogs a lot of the time with Joan, and it makes the other guys mad. And at one point we get a confessional and Chalk doesn't care. Like he knows he's monopolizing the time, but he just doesn't care. And this was wild to me because like, Chalk, you already got it in the bag. I'm pretty sure you're top 3. Like you don't need to hog all the time. Like you don't need it. And Joan has specifically said to Chalk, I want to get to know you more. And she has not said that to any of the other contestants. And us as viewers, we can tell that Chalk is going to make it far. But when you're a contestant on the show and you're in the moment, in your head, you're probably like, I need to try as hard as possible and I can't let up. I have to like keep doing what I'm doing. I can't let off the gas now or I'll mess up. So he can't see that he's a front runner, so I'm guessing that's what's happening, but we all see it. So we can tell he doesn't need to do all that, but I'm sure he doesn't know that. And the last thing I want to say on the group date, so Joan had a lot of one-on-ones on the group date, but nothing was really notable except she does have a one-on-one with Guy, and Guy tells her, I really want to take her home to Reno, Nevada. And I'm just like, Guy, that's fantastic, but we don't want to go to Reno, Nevada. So I have never been there, but y'all, I've heard that city is a dump. So like, I'm sure he lives in a nice neighborhood, and I absolutely love the show Reno 911, but y'all, I listen to like a lot of comedians, and multiple comedians have said Reno, Nevada is a dump. After that, we have a one-on-one with Mark, and multiple times in the episode, Mark says, I want Joan to meet my kids. And like, meeting your kids is not a big deal. She met Kelsey on night 1 before she even met you. And yep, it's that time outfit of the episode. For this week's outfit of the episode, I'm giving it to Joan on her one-on-one with Mark. Joan is serving us this really cute long dress. It's white and green, and it has like a floral, I guess it's like a palm tree pattern on the dress. It's flowy, the material looks like silky, it's long sleeve, long gown, and in the back, it's slightly backless, and then right below the bust, it's like cinched, and it makes her chest look really good. And overall, Joan is really serving us some really great daytime looks. And what I love about it is like, a lot of her outfits are just a little sexy. Like, it's not too much, and her outfits are very like age appropriate. Like, there's no other way I can explain that, but like I really like her style. Sophisticated, that is the word I'm looking for. Her style is very sophisticated, and she's never doing too much, especially on these daytime looks, and I really like that. Like, when it comes to the night portion, she'd be doing a lot, and that's fine. It's evening wear, it's the night portion, do it up. But during these daytime looks, it's sophisticated, but it's not too much, and I think that's what I love most about it. And is her style my favorite? No, but I very much appreciate it. So for the date, Joan and Mark take a Porsche to the yacht, dream date, yada, yada, yada. But during the date, Mark is super quiet. And again, it's very clear to me that production is pushing him to be the next lead. But I'm like, how are we gonna do it? This man's way too quiet. He cannot do it. And thank God, last minute, production put together a scavenger hunt for them, because without that, Mark would have bombed even harder on this date. And the scavenger hunt was cute, and it was very much like an icebreaker to get him to talk, or just to get them to communicate more, and it worked well. Once they started doing the scavenger hunt, the date definitely picked up. And at one point, Joan and Mark are playing Never Have I Ever, and Mark says, never have I ever woken up at night to feed a baby. And I'm sure a lot of y'all thought that was weird or like a red flag, but just a heads up, Mark was military, and both of my parents were in the military too. So there's a good chance Mark was just overseas when his kids were babies. Like, if my dad said I never woke up at night to feed a baby, I'd believe it, because when I was born, my dad wasn't even there. He was like overseas somewhere. So again, I don't think that's a red flag. I just think that was just a military thing. And then in my notes, I wrote, is Joan ready for this? But I don't remember why I wrote that, but I did write that. And then at one point, it's getting later into the date, and and either production or Mark gives Joan a blanket, and I love that she just wrapped herself in a blanket. Like, it was just so feminine. And then Joan and Mark have a one-on-one, and they talk about their spouses, and y'all, I was so bored during this one-on-one, and I think I tried rewinding it twice, and I just lost focus both times. But I don't think they said anything notable, so if I missed something, put it in the comments. And that's all I got for the one-on-one date, and this was really weird. So on a normal Bachelor or Bachelorette season, so right before hometowns, usually they have one-on-one dates, and you either get a rose on the date or you don't. But for both the date with Mark and the date for Keith, no roses were given, but they were still in the running, which was really weird. I honestly think it's just because they're older guys. They wanted to just save the roses to the rose ceremony. Like, I guess they didn't want to like eliminate people on the spot, because both Mark and Keith would have been eliminated on the spot, and I guess they didn't. It would have been kind of a sad episode. I don't know. That's probably why though. After that, we go back to the Bachelor Mansion, and Joan shows up and she pulls Mark for a one-on-one to break up with him. And during the breakup, she says she didn't see herself in conversations, and she didn't feel like she imagined an us. And she also says, I feel like I came in a little too early for you. So let's unpack this. First of all, again, I truly think production is pushing for Mark to be the next lead. That's why they couldn't break up on the one-on-one. Like, she had to pull him aside and have this glamorous conversation. Like, ABC was definitely trying to make their breakup more glamorous, because again, I'm telling y'all, they are gunning for him to be the next lead, which, as y'all know, I do not want. Next, I think it's absolutely insane that Joan said, I feel like I came in a little too early for you. Girl, we could say the same thing as you. The past few dates, you have been triggered by something that has made you think of your previous husband. And this is going back to what I said earlier in the video. During the date with Keith, Joan was triggered by that couple saying they reached their 32nd or 33rd marriage, and that was triggering for her. And then on that date with Jonathan, she saw a hawk and it reminded her of her husband, and she got emotional. And this makes me feel like she's not ready either, but she's telling Mark that she came in a little too early for him, but you could say the same back. I think this whole situation may be a little too early for her too. And during this breakup, Joan says she didn't want to send him home at the rose ceremony without a conversation, which makes sense. Like, I guess Mark was entitled to a conversation, but honestly, you could have broken up with him at the rose ceremony. I think it would have been okay. But again, production, I feel like it's pushing him to be lead, so they wanted the conversation. And the other thing is, so Joan said after the date, she had to take a night, she thought about it, yada, yada, yada. I would have rather her broken up with him at the end of the day, but like, to wait till the next day and do all this I thought that was just weird. Like, you could have broken up with him at the date. Oh, but then now that I think about it, actually all the guys in the house get along really well. So if you break up with them on the date and they have to go immediately home, they don't get to say bye to the guys. So maybe that's why they break up at the mansion, so the guys have a chance to say goodbye. That's probably why they do it. And then during the end of their breakup, Mark tells Joan, I'm a better human, I'm a better man, I'm a better father after this experience. And like, get the out of here. Like, this is so dramatic and so extra for literally no reason. And like, don't get me wrong, I do feel like a lot of the contestants are better people after this experience, but with Mark specifically, I think this is like just too extra. After that, we move on to the rose ceremony, and Joan's dress was slamming. She gave us a really good nighttime look here too. And we get our final four. It's Pascal, Guy, Chalk, and Jordan. So the biggest upset for me is probably Pascal. I was just surprised Pascal made it to top four. Like, I feel like he made top four because Joan is just comfortable with him, but like, I doubt she sees a life with him. And then Jordan, I don't know why she kept Jordan. Like, yes, he's attractive, but like, Joan, you're not gonna pick him. Like, I just don't see her choosing him. Next, Keith was a big upset for me. I definitely felt like she could have had a good life with Keith, but she sent him home. And she also sent Jonathan home, which I don't really care. And then Jonathan got in the Uber XL and was like, oh, I feel like my journey is just beginning, yada, yada, yada. It sounded like he's trying to be the next lead or something, which is not gonna happen. I'm glad he's going home. I'm really over him at this point. And that is the end of the episode. If you enjoyed this review, please go ahead and pound that like button, pound that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell, and I will see you all next time. Have a good one. Bye.